Hello everyone and welcome to another JavaScript mastery video. This one is quite special. I'm going to teach you how to build and deploy your own fully custom JavaScript API from scratch. More importantly, in this one video, you'll learn how to start selling it and turn it into a profitable business. We'll go over the thought process of coming up with an API idea, and then we're going to build it. In this video, you'll learn how to build a custom Amazon scraper API. Once we build and deploy the API, I'll teach you how to put it on a platform called RapidAPI, set the pricing tiers, start selling it, and finally build a business around it, all in one video. This is a project for developers of all skill levels. There are no prerequisites. If you're a beginner, you'll learn what APIs are and how to create a backend JavaScript application using Node and Express and much more. And if you're already an established developer, you'll more appreciate the deployment and business aspects of this video. With that said, let me show you what will be built. In this video, I'll showcase the entire process from the idea to deployment on a real example. We'll build an Amazon Data Scraper API. This API will parse all the valuable product data in the HTML response and return it in a JSON format. Of course, this was just my idea. I want to encourage you to think of something you've been wanting to create for quite some time now and do it by following my example. That way, you'll have something unique that you've created and you'll be able to put it on RapidAPI by following the same steps. As you already know, in this video, I'm going to teach you how you can build your own API. But let me know if you'd like to see it the other way around. In one of the next videos, I can go on the RapidAPI's Marketplace, find one of the APIs somebody else posted, and then build an entire application around it. Definitely let me know in the comments. I don't want to take a lot of your time before we dive into the code, so let me just quickly say that around 70% of you watching these videos are still not subscribed. So if you like the videos, definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you like it, like and comment for the YouTube algorithm. Now, let's dive right in. Before we dive right into the code, let's quickly explain what an API is. API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it allows two applications to talk to each other. Each time you use an app like Facebook, send an instant message, or check the weather on your phone, you're using an API. So, what exactly is an API? When you use an app on your phone, the application connects to the internet and sends the data to a server. The server then retrieves that data, performs the necessary actions, and sends it back to your phone. The application then gets that data and presents you with the information you wanted in a readable way, and that's what an API is. To explain this better, let's take a familiar example. Imagine you're sitting at a table in a restaurant with a menu of choices to order from. The kitchen is the part of the system that will prepare your order. What is missing is the critical link to communicate your order to the kitchen and deliver your food back to your table. That's where the waiter or API comes in. The waiter is the messenger or API that takes your request or order and tells the kitchen, the system, what to do. Then the waiter delivers the response back to you. In this case, it's the food. Hopefully, this makes some sense. But here on JavaScript Mastery, we strongly believe that you learn best while doing. So now, allow me to show you what you will build today. Using node.js, the most popular JavaScript runtime, and Express, which is a framework for Node, which is going to allow us to create a server, we are going to create a backend application or an API. Then we're going to deploy and host that API and put it on RapidAPI's Marketplace, where hundreds of thousands of people will be able to use it. In this case, I've built the Amazon Data Scraper API. Let me show you what this API does. Amazon Data Scraper is the easiest way to get access to product, price, sales rank, and reviews data from Amazon in JSON format. We have 4 different endpoints here, one for the search results, offers, reviews, and product details. If you scroll right there, you can see everything that this specific request can do. For example, we can pass some information and the product ID. Based on that, we're going to get all the information about that specific Amazon product. In this case, it's going to be the Apple MacBook Air. Then you can also see the schema of what you're going to get for each specific different API request that you want to make. But we talked for quite some time now. Let's actually download Node.js and build it out. Of course, if you already have Node.js installed, you can skip this step, but if you don't, definitely make sure to download and install it. Once you install it, you can head to your desktop, and there you can create a new folder. In this case, let's call it something like Amazon Scraper. Of course, you can call it something else, or you can create a different project entirely. Once you've created it, you can simply drag and drop it into your code editor of choice. In this case, we'll be using Visual Studio Code. Once you're in there, we'll be able to create our package.json, which is a starting point of every application. To create our package.json, you can go to View, and then finally Terminal. This is going to open up Visual Studio Code's integrated terminal. We can run the clear command, and then in here, you can say npm init and then -y. This is going to generate the package.json. The package.json is looking quite empty right now. It just has the name, the version, and the main file, index.js, which we're going to create in just a moment. And then we have some scripts in here. We can start off by removing the test script, and we can create a start script. We're going to use this for starting our application. That is going to be equal to node index.js. So we want to run the index.js file with our node command. Make sure to wrap both start and node index.js in double quoted strings. Let's install all the necessary dependencies by running npm install. The first one is going to be Express, a backend framework for Node.js. Then we can install request-promise. We're going to need that for making API requests. And finally, we can install NodeMon. NodeMon is going to reload our terminal every time that we make changes in our code. Let's press enter and wait for this to be installed. Once our packages are installed, we can add that NodeMon command right here. We can say something like dev, and then under that, we can specify a new command, which is going to be NodeMon index.js. We can add a comma at the end. Now we can use the dev command to run our application while we're developing it. Now that we are done with the setup, we can right-click right there and create a new index.js file. This is going to be our API. Inside of here, we can say const express is equal to require express. As we've mentioned a few times before, we're going to use express to create a backend application. Then we can also require const request is equal to require, and that is going to be request-promise. We're going to use this to make API requests. Now that we have Express, we can initialize our application by saying const app is equal to express, and then we call it as a function. Just below that, we can also create our port. We can say const port, all uppercase because it is a constant, is equal to, and that's going to be process.env.port, all uppercase like this. Later on, we're going to get a dynamic port from where we deploy our application. But for now, we can say or it's just one or, and that's going to be port 5000. Finally, below that, we can say app.use, and then in there, we can say express.json and call it. That's going to allow our application to parse JSON input, which is exactly what we want. Then, every Express application needs at least one route. So let's create it. App.get. The first one is the initial root route, and that's going to be just /. Then we're going to have a callback function. And then inside of that callback function, we have our request and the response. Then we can return something. We're going to have a function block right inside of here. So what do we want to send back once somebody visits this specific URL on our API? Well, we can say res.send, and in this case right here, we can simply say, welcome to Amazon Scraper API. Of course, you can put anything you'd like here. It's just a message to let us know that our server is running. The last thing that we have to do to actually start this server is say app.listen. We need to make our server listen on a specific port. And would you look at that? We already have a port we want to listen on. So we can put that port there. And Express also allows us to create a callback function that's going to execute once we run the application. So we can say console.log, and then in there, we can simply say something like server running on port, and then we can use template strings to specify on which port are we currently running our application. Great. This is the bare bones Express application. Now you can run it by running npm run dev. This is going to run nodemon and run our application. And it looks like instead of running the app, we broke it. From what I've noticed, the request promise library requires one more dependency, and that is just the request dependency. So let's install it. You can stop your terminal from running by pressing Ctrl+C and then Y. And then inside of here, you can say npm install and then specify request. This took just a second to install, and now we can run our app by running npm run dev. As you can see, our server running on port 5000. In the next part of the video, you'll see that I have just a request right there, but that's a mistake and it's going to be fixed later. So just keep the request promise here at all times. Great. Now let's check it out in the browser. To see it in action, just open up your browser and go to localhost 5000. And just to see it a lot better, I zoomed this page all the way to 500%. There we go. Welcome to the Amazon Scraper API. We've successfully created a Node.js Express backend JavaScript server, and now we're going to add the routes that are going to give it additional logic. Let's do that right away. To scrape useful data from the Amazon's website, we're going to use a service called Scraper API. This tool allows you to scrape HTML off of any site and then turn it into useful JSON information. You can start with Scraper API completely for free. You get 5,000 free requests, which would be more than enough for a demo application. If your own API also uses web scraping and you need just a few extra requests, definitely make sure to use the link in the description. There's a discount code. With that said, let's sign up and create an account. You can sign up using Google or GitHub. And once you're in there, you're going to get to a page that looks like this. The most important part in this page is the API key. You can copy it, and then we can go back to the code. For now, we can put it right here by saying const API key is equal to a string of, and then we paste that API key we just copied. Now that we have our API key, we can close this terminal and let's create our base URL. We can say something like const base URL. Let's make that a template string and let's start with http:// and that's going to be api.scraperapi.com. Then we can add a question mark and say API_key is going to be equal to, and then you can use the $ and curly braces to provide a real API key in there. Finally, we're going to add one more query parameter by saying and then we're going to say autoparse is equal to true. Great. Now we have our base URL and we can make our own routes from our API to fetch specific products. So the first route is going to be for fetching product details. So let's add a comment, get product details. That is again going to be an app.get, and the URL is going to be /products / product ID. This colon here means that the product ID is going to be dynamic. Finally, we can add a callback function. This time it is going to be async, and it's also going to have a request and a response. We can expand that function, and we can first get the product ID from parameters. Whenever you have a colon something, you can say const, specify the name of that something, which is in this case product ID, and that is going to be populated inside of request.parameters. Now that we have that, we can open a try and catch block. Inside of that block, we want to get a response from Scraper API. Const response is going to be equal to await, and then we use that request that we imported at the top. Inside of the request, we can provide our first URL. That is going to be equal to a template string. In there, we can specify our base URL that we specified at the top right there. And then we can add some extra parameters. We can say end URL is equal to, and then we can say HTTPS colon // and this time it is going to be www.amazon.com and then /DP. DP is maybe product details, and then /, and then in here we have to provide .product ID. This is going to give us information for a specific product. Finally, we just want to send that response back from our server, so we can say res.json, and then inside of there, we can provide that response. Also, for the error, we can do res.json, and then in there, we can provide the error. Our first route should be done. Let's save it and take a look in the browser. We are back on localhost 5000, but now we have to go to /products, and then we have to go to / and then a specific product ID. So what exactly is this product ID and where can we find it? I've just opened amazon.com and I'm gonna search for something like a MacBook Air. And then let's open this 2020 Apple MacBook Air. There, just in the URL, you should be able to see VP, and then we have our product ID. You can find that ID for every single product. Now that we have it, let's go to our localhost 5000 and simply paste it right there. And would you look at that, our data is right here. But right now it's quite unreadable, so let's go back to the code and fix it. Our data is currently in a text format, so we can run json.parse and then parse our response just before we send it back. Let's save it and then check it one more time. And this already looks so much better. For you, it might still look like this. If it does, make sure to install JSON formatter. Then you can parse it, and then in the browser, it's immediately going to look like this, extremely readable. So let's see what do we have here. We have the product name, product information, the weight, product dimensions, language, brand, basically everything, pricing, even images. You can expand them and then you can click on a specific image and get all of the images from the Amazon listing. And the beautiful thing about this is that other developers can use this data to create a website that's going to showcase these products. They can create basically an Amazon clone or something entirely different, but they can use the data. And that's where APIs come into play. And I just want to emphasize something one more time. This is just my little API that uses web scraping. You can create an even better one, and it doesn't have to be a scraping API. You can do something completely different. You can use your own database and then serve the responses from there. Or for example, take a look at the top 50 APIs. API for flight data, for weather information, football, finance, love calculator, Hearthstone, currency exchange, news, booking, email validation. You can create your own algorithms that are gonna serve as APIs, movie databases, jokes, anything you can think of, you can create an API and then upload it to the RapidAPI Marketplace. With that said, our first endpoint is done. And what would an API be with just one endpoint? We need to have more. Current one is giving us product info. Now let's create two more endpoints, one of which is going to give us more offers about a specific product, and the other one is going to give us detailed reviews. Let's do that right away. To create the second route, we can simply copy the first one right there, and this one is going to be get product reviews. We need to change the URL. We can still leave it as product and then product ID, but we can add another / and simply say reviews. This is going to remain the same. We still need a product ID, and the response is going to change just a bit. Let's move to the right. This here is going to be amazon.com / and then instead of DP, it's going to be product - reviews. And that was easier than we anticipated. Let's check it out. To go to this route, we can simply add / reviews onto our URL bar. And let's wait a few seconds and check it out. It took just a bit because there are a lot of reviews to parse, but in here we have detailed information about the reviews, how many 5-star ratings, how many 4-star ratings, and so on. And we can also see the top positive reviews, how many stars, the date of the review, and finally the entire title and the review data. We can even sort it by top positive, top critical, and we also have access to all of the other reviews. Beautiful. Now onto the third one, and that is product offers. We can again copy this one and then change the comment to say get product, and this is going to be offers. We can still do the same thing, just change reviews to /offers. This will no longer be product reviews. We can add GP and then /offer dash listing. Let's save it and check it out in the browser. To check it out, we just have to change this from reviews to offers. And here's our data. Unfortunately, our MacBook Air doesn't have any current offers, and that's why this is empty. But that's fully okay. Some products will have that and some will not. Now let's go on to the most important thing, and that is implementing the search query. So if we go back, you'll notice right there we are searching for MacBook Air, and there are many things that we got back. Maybe we want to display that. At the top, you can see search ? K is equal to, and then we have our term. Let's implement that. To implement that request, we can again copy the previous one. This time we can say something like get search, and that is going to be get search results. This route is going to be just a bit different. We no longer have products. We're going to have something like /search and then / search query. We need to know what we're searching for. Then again, opposed to getting the product ID, we're going to get the search query from rec.params. Finally, we have to modify our request just a bit. So right here, instead of offer listing GP, we can simply say s ? K is equal to, and then in here, we can provide a search query. So one more time, s for search, ? K is equal to, and then the search query. To be completely honest, I'm not sure what K stands for. Maybe you can let me know in the comments. Great. But this is how the request should look like. We can save it and take a look. We can enter the URL for our newly created endpoint, and that is going to be search / and let's search for something like MacBook Air. There we go. Our data is back. We even got the array of ads. So if you want to hide them, well, now it's so easy to do that. You can use this API on your own website and then just display the results. Great. So as you can see, we have many different results here. First is 2020 Apple MacBook, then we have the 13-inch version, and so on. But generally, we got back all of the results that have something to do with our search query. Great. All of our 4 endpoints are created, and with that, our API is almost done. Before we go ahead and host this application on Heroku, there's one more thing we have to make. Or rather, there's one more question we have to ask ourselves. Do we want to share our own scraper API key to everybody using our own API key? So do we want to share it? Or do we want everybody to also need their own scraper API key? In this case, I'm going to comment it out because I don't want it to be publicly visible. And we're going to require everybody that wants to use our API to also get this API key. Now that this is commented out, we need to change this URL because it's no longer going to be static. So we can do something like const and say generate scraper URL, something like that. And that's going to be a function that's going to accept an API key. And based on that, it's going to return a string similar to the one we've had so far. We can basically copy our base URL and delete it. The actual URL is going to be the same, but notice that now API key is not our API key, but rather we're passing it inside when we call the function. So the question is, where do we call this function? And the answer is with every single one of these responses. Instead of the base URL, what we want to do is we want to call the generate scraper URL. That's going to be a function. And into that function, we need to pass our API key. But now you might be wondering, where is this API key coming from? We're going to add query parameters to every single one of our requests. So later on in RapidAPI Marketplace, users will be able to say ? and then specify their API key like this. And then that API key will be populated inside of our request.query. So we can get that right inside of here. Const API underscore and key. And we're getting that from rec.query. Great. Now you can see we're getting the API key from here, and we're simply putting it right at the start of our URL. That way, everybody will be able to enter their own API key. Now we have to copy that for 3 requests below. So I'm going to copy it, paste it right here, and right here. And we also need to change our base URL to call generate scraper URL. We can do that by selecting base URL, doing Control F, pressing this little arrow right there, and then we can copy this specific function call, put it under replace, and then simply click replace all. That's going to replace our base URL with the generated scraper URL with the dynamic API key. If that Control F didn't work for you, you can simply paste the scraper URL instead of every single base URL. Great. With that, our application is ready to be deployed to Heroku. Last thing that you can do is remove this API key from here and store it somewhere else. Our app is ready to be hosted on Heroku. Let's do that right now. To host your application, you can of course use anything you want like Hostinger, AWS, or Heroku. From my experience, it's extremely easy to quickly get apps up and running on Heroku, so that's what we'll be using today. To start, you can sign up or log in at the top. Once you do that, you'll be on your dashboard. As you can see, I have quite a few, and we're gonna open a new one. So let's click Create New App, and let's enter a unique name, JSM Amazon Scraper. Great, you can choose your region and click Create App. If you scroll a bit down, you'll be greeted with all the instructions on how you can deploy your API. First, you have to download and install the Heroku CLI. After you click the link, you'll be greeted with all the download links right inside of here. I already have it downloaded, so I'll see you on the next step. After that, you can cd into your project. I think we're already there, and then you can run git init. I opened our app side by side so it's easier to see, and I'm going to stop our server from running by pressing Ctrl C and then Y. You can clear the terminal as well. Now let's run git init. Once you're in there, copy the next command, Heroku git remote. There we go, it's going to create it. Before you run git add, definitely make sure to open your file explorer and add a file called .gitignore. In there, we can add our node_modules to the ignore list. That way they're not going to be pushed to Heroku, which is exactly what we want. When that is done, you can run git add, and finally git commit, and at the end, git push Heroku master. That is going to build out and deploy our server to Heroku. Once that is done, you can expand your browser, go to overview, and then in here, you should see build succeeded. Finally, you can click open app. And as you can see, on our own custom domain, JSM Amazon Scraper, it's going to be different for you. You'll see that our API is live, which means that it's not only on our local host, now it's accessible from the web. And here we are. To get to RapidAPI's Marketplace, click the link in the description. It's going to be somewhere around the top. So I've promised you something in the beginning, and now I'm gonna deliver it. You've already built the API. You've already hosted it, and now is the time to deploy it on the marketplace. Not only am I going to show you how you can put it on the marketplace, I'm also going to show you how to set the pricing tiers and finally start selling it. And again, you don't need to deploy the Amazon Scraper thing. Build something your own. Now you know the entire process. I'm going to show you the final things, and then after this video, you can start creating your own API and then put it right here as well. So let me show you how to do it. You can visit the top right corner and click My APIs. That opened up the dashboard for me, and as you can see, I already have the Amazon Data Scraper. But in this case, I'm going to create one more just so I can show you the entire process. So I'm gonna go to the top left, add new API. Inside of here, you can enter your API's name. I'm gonna do JavaScript Mastery Amazon Data Scraper, and you can enter a short description. In this case, I'm just gonna copy the sentence I've had before. You can also select a category. In this case, this would be e-commerce. And finally, now we come to a really important part, and that is how do we want to specify our API? We can use RapidAPI's UI, OpenAPI standard, Postman collection, a GraphQL schema, or Kafka. In this case, we're just going to use built-in UI. So let's click Add API. In here, you can enter a long description if you want to, and you can upload the image. I've just uploaded the Amazon logo. In here, you can enter the website URL. In our case, that can be our API, so you can just copy it and paste it right here. Finally, if you have some terms of use, you can enter them right here. In my case, I'm gonna simply click Save. Great, we're done with the first part. Now we have to add a base URL. We can click Configure right here and paste it right inside of here. Our base URL is the same one we've entered for our website, and that is our API. That is the website that we're hosting on Heroku. We can add that as a base URL and click Save. Of course, we also have to specify 4 of our endpoints, so let's create them one by one. Let's create a REST endpoint, and we can start with our get Amazon product details. I would definitely advise you to enter a lengthier description in here. In my case, I'm gonna simply copy what I had in the name. If you have some external documentation links, you can paste them right there. And then finally, you can specify the endpoint. In our case, that's going to be /products, and then finally product ID. In this case, you don't have to put a colon right there. It says use curly braces to indicate path parameters. Great. So this is our get for the product details. A great thing about RapidAPI is that the API you wrote will be accessible through most of the most popular programming languages. That's crazy. As you can see, they recognized we have one path parameter, and we can add the example value, and in our case, that was the ID of the MacBook Air. You can put any random Amazon product ID. Finally, we can click Save to test endpoint and test endpoint. They're gonna give us an example response, and right now it's going to be 401 unauthorized because we haven't yet specified the key. But remember, I've told you there's going to be an easy way to specify the API key, and that is through the query. Inside of here, we can specify API_key. That is going to be a string, and then in here, you can choose whether you want to show your key as the example value. I definitely wouldn't recommend to do that because then everybody will be able to see it. But since this is the demo example, I'm going to leave it here and I'm going to make it required because people need to have their API key to be able to use this API. And there we go. Product data is here. You can click right there to copy it and then go to example responses, select the response code, which is going to be 200, and add response code. Finally, we can add our example response so that people can know what they're gonna get even before they start using the API. Not only that, we can also generate a schema, so that way people can assume what each Amazon product is going to have even before they make a request. Great. Now this is done. And let's fill in some details. In here, we can say Apple MacBook Air product details. And also for the example, we can say MacBook Air product details, just so that people know what the example request is about. Finally, let's click Save. And there we go. One endpoint is successfully added. I'm not going to waste your time and create endpoints for all the requests that we have. I know you're eager to start creating your own API just after this video. So I'm just going to add one more, and that is going to be our get Amazon search results. Great. So let's scroll down. We can specify our URL here. That's going to be /search. And then inside of curly braces, we can say search query. For our search query, we can also enter a default value. Let's go with MacBook Air again. And then finally in the query, as you know it, we can specify our API key. And again, you can choose to put it here or not. Finally, if we scroll down, we can add some example requests. So let's go here to example responses, choose the status code of 200, which means that everything is okay. And I'm going to add my API key just so I can test this endpoint. Okay, I've clicked test endpoint, and at the bottom we have our results. I'm going to copy them one more time, go to example responses, and then simply paste them right here. And also click generate schema. That way people will be able to know what they can search for every single Amazon term. Now let's save it. And with that said, we should have 2 endpoints already done. Before we go ahead and make our API public, let's go ahead and check some of the other tabs right there. Security has a lot of options right here. You also have global settings, docs, announcements, and finally, plans and pricing. That's one that's quite important. For now, we'll try to keep it simple and price our API by the number of requests that people make. In our case, a call to any endpoint is considered a one request. So you can scroll down, and then in here, you can add your plans. For example, for our basic plan, we can click edit and say that people can make monthly around 8,000 requests. And we're going to set a hard limit. That means that if they go over, it's simply going to be blocked. Great. We can click save. And with that, we have a free basic plan. Now let's add a pro plan. It's going to be the same thing. We're going to have requests, monthly, and in this case, let's do something like 10,000. And then we can even allow them to go over that and specify that, for example, each extra request is $0.01, so 1 cent. Great, we can save that. And let's add just one more plan. In this case, this is going to be for huge users. We can add requests, and then monthly, they can make 50,000 requests. And we're also going to charge them 1 cent for extra requests above 50,000. Great, let's save it. Once you've added all of your plans, you can click preview, and there we go. This is how the pricing plan is going to look like. People will be able to come here, subscribe to your API, and RapidAPI will handle the rest. With that said, we are ready to make our API public. Let's click right there and switch this from private to public. And this is a demo API I'm making, but if you're making your own, make sure that your API is fully documented, working, and it's going to become accessible to hundreds of thousands of developers on the marketplace. Let's make it public. And finally, on the top right corner, you can click View in Marketplace. There we go. Our API was hosted in a matter of seconds. It's right there, accessible to people. You can visit it by URL, and people can actually test it before they start using it. As you can see, here are 2 endpoints we've added. Product details. They can immediately see what do they have to enter, the API key and the product ID, and they can test that endpoint. We just got the results, but we can also see the example responses, the entire body, and the schema of a response. That's great. And finally, let's try one more with search. As you can see, people can test the endpoint with any search they want. So let's search for something like a keyboard. There we go. Test endpoint. And just by entering a search query, we are immediately greeted with JSON data on all of the newest keyboards. Great. In this video, you've learned a bit about what APIs are. You've built an Amazon Data Scraper API, hosted it, and deployed it to RapidAPI's Marketplace. Now, as I've already told you, I strongly believe that you learn best while doing something yourself. So, after watching this video, definitely make sure to think of an idea and create something yourself, and then try to replicate the process from creating a backend server, hosting it on Heroku, and also putting it on RapidAPI. If you like this video, definitely make sure to like and leave a comment. It means so much, and also it helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, let me know if you'd like me to create a video using APIs, but this time the other way around. I would go here, find an interesting API somebody else has built, and then build an entire application around that specific API. Feel free to browse a bit and let me know which one would you prefer. That was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe so I can see you in the next one, and have a wonderful day.